Hello, everybody. It's Ian Heller with Distribution Strategy Group. Welcome to a fantastic webinar. I'm delighted to be the moderator for Will Quinn, who is, and I mean this in a legal sense, the distribution guy, who's going to do a webinar on transforming wholesale distribution warehousing with AI. There's so much opportunity in the warehouse to use AI to get better results, better productivity, better inventory turns, better accuracy. And Will's going to walk us through a lot of those opportunities. And so we'll get to him in just a minute. First, we want to thank our sponsors, Epicor and Fishbowl. We're going to hear from them also in a minute. But first, we got to do a little business ourselves, which is to invite you to our upcoming event, Applied AI for Distributors 2025. It's really about how you apply AI very specifically in distribution from the front of the house to the back of the house, to customers, to suppliers, to get, again, better productivity, more efficiency, incredible gains. It's all moving so fast. I mean, this is the only live event of any scale that's dedicated just to AI and distribution. How can you miss it? You got to send somebody. Our speaker lineup's incredible. We got Noel Russell, who's was just named the #1 thinker globally on agentic AI, which is going to be the next big thing after LLMs. Trent Gillespie, former Amazon guy who headed up a lot of their initiatives. Don Sarno, who's the SVP for Digital Enterprise for Sonepar, the world's largest electrical distributor. Janet Zelenka, I've been on a board with her. She's a freaking genius. She's been a CIO and a CFO a couple of times for distribution companies. Paul Kennedy, the amazing CEO at DSG Supply. Tracy Dool, who's doing a great job as CIO over at Boston McBraun. Dina Stanton, who was at Stericycle before, a reverse logistics company, now is a VP of compensation at Kyndryl. Jamie Head, who's the CIO at Partstown, this amazing distribution company in Chicago. I mean, these are world-class speakers. We've got 30 different technology companies showing you how to apply AI to your operations. You have to send somebody. I mean, you can't fall behind on this. So I suggest you sign up today. It's a pretty good shot this thing's going to sell out. So I wouldn't wait too long. It's June 24th through 26th. Okay, now I'd like to welcome in our friend from Epicor, Sandy Leon, who's the field marketing principal for distribution. Sandy, it's so great to see you again. Welcome to the program.
Thanks so much, Ian. We're happy to be a sponsor. Next page.
You bet.
Today, Will Quinn is going to be talking about warehousing and AI, two things we love to talk about at Epicor. Our ERPs, Profit 21 and Eclipse, have been designed over the course of 50 years with the help of distributors to fit your industry. New customers tell us all the time that they chose Epicor because we get them, and our software works the way they do. Our warehouse management system in particular includes a powerful range of features that are going to help you manage warehouse activities, saving you time and reducing errors. Next slide. Our warehouse management system is really all the more powerful because of the AI we're building into our ERPs. As we speak, we're developing AI use cases specifically for distributors with the leading companies in the world like Microsoft, OpenAI, and Workato. Epicor has actually been working with Microsoft Azure OpenAI for many years now. While Microsoft may be creating AI, we are actually applying it to the distribution industry. We do this not because it's cool stuff, which of course it is, but because we know how powerful AI is going to be in helping you drive efficiency and accuracy, ultimately freeing up your team to spend more time on what we still need humans to do, those things that are going to provide added value for your business. As you listen to this webinar and think about your technology plans for the coming years, think about Epicor. If you're in the market for new tools to support your growth, we'd love to talk.
That's great. You can reach out to Sandy at sandy.leon, L-I-E-N, at epicor.com, or go to www.epicor.com/distribution. You guys have like a 96% retention rate or something outrageous like that, Sandy. I mean, there's a reason Epicor needs to be on the consideration set for everybody who's looking at ERP. So thanks again for sponsoring this program. And I'm very, very excited to see you in Chicago and hear about what you're doing with AI for distributors. So thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, fantastic. Now I'm delighted to welcome a new sponsor to the DSG Distribution Strategy Group lineup of sponsors. It's Fishbowl, and today with us is Pamela Guyton, who's the VP of Demand Generation. Pamela, thanks so much for supporting this important webinar. Please tell us about how Fishbowl can bring benefits to distributors.
Thank you, Ian. And for those of you who don't know us, Fishbowl is an all-in-one inventory and operations platform that's built for growing distributors. We help you manage inventory, purchasing, warehousing, and fulfillment all in one place so you can run more efficiently and scale with confidence. A lot of smaller distributors rely on disconnected systems, manual spreadsheets, QuickBooks or Xero, and workarounds that can create delays and errors. Fishbowl brings everything together into a unified system, giving you real-time visibility and control across your operations. Next slide. That visibility translates into results, like a 12% improvement in on time, in full delivery. By automating workflows and reducing errors, you keep customers happy and operations running smoothly. Next slide. With more than
And
20 years,
there we go.
there we
Sorry.
go. With more than 20 years in the space and over 50,000 users, Fishbowl is built for your needs. We integrate seamlessly with the most popular accounting platforms and offer the tools you need to manage growth without adding complexity. Next slide. And now, the topic of the day, AI. With our AI Insights tool, you get predictive tools for demand and inventory forecasting and smarter reordering, helping you stay ahead of trends and enabling you to stock with confidence. To learn more or to schedule a demo, visit fishbowlinventory.com.
Okay, that's fishbowlinventory.com. Look, I mean, when it comes to working capital, it's the lifeblood of a distributor. You've got to get your inventory right. What Pamela has just laid out are some extraordinary gains you can get by using in your inventory performance with Fishbowl. So thanks again, Pamela and to Fishbowl for sponsoring. Now I'm delighted to bring in the star of the show, my friend, the distribution guy, Will Quinn. How you doing, buddy?
Uh, I'm I'm super excited to be here, Ian. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Epicor and Fishbowl.
Absolutely. We're just thrilled to have you here, Will. So take it away, my friend, and teach us something.
Sure. Well, again, everybody, thanks for joining today. I appreciate you being here. We're going to talk about a five-step process of how to approach artificial intelligence in warehousing and distribution. We're not here to sell you magic. This is a five-step roadmap that's realistic. It's grounded in operations. Built for leaders who've run warehouses and P&Ls, not just whiteboards. So,
Like
first thing,
like you, man. This is you. This is you. You got the background for it.
yeah, I started my career in my journey in supply chain and logistics in the Marine Corps. Spent 12 years in the Marine Corps on active duty and in the active reserves, doing supply chain and logistics, overseas, stateside. Just had a blast. And then just most of my career has been working for companies like Coca-Cola, MSC Industrial Supply, Granger, on boots on the ground, running distribution centers, getting orders out the door for customers to help keep our country rolling. And 4 years, the last 4 years, I was with a technology company called Infor. It gave me a great insight into all of the different technological aspects of distribution and kind of giving me a bigger picture of how everything works together.
Yeah, it's a really interesting background, and I know we'll move on here in just a second, but you get that military background, and no one's better at global logistics than the military, right? 12 years of that. And then, some of these high profile distributors and companies that do distribution, Granger, Coca-Cola, MSC, and then the technology background, and you get the MS and supply chain management from Elmhurst. I mean, you really are totally well rounded on this topic. So let's jump in. So take it away, my friend.
Sure. So, well, thank you. And I think as leaders, as go-getters, our first instinct is to kind of jump in and solve problems. But I think it's important to kind of take a step back and say, okay, what do I have? One of my hallmarks as a leader, as a runner of operations, like, have I maximized what I've been given, right? Before I start asking for more technology, more forklifts, more operators, more space, have I maximized what I've already been given? And if you take that approach and you maximize the things that you've been given, leaders are more likely to buy into new technology or whatever it is you're asking for, knowing that you're like, listen, like we've maxed out our potential either through growth or whatever the case is. Now it's time to move on. So I think you want to think of your operations kind of like a sports team. Like before you're adding on technological advances, you want to make sure, are you doing the fundamentals right? I just think back to my Chicago Bears. Like last year, we added a great quarterback and a great wide receiver, and it didn't work out. Why? Because we didn't have the linemen up front protecting their blind side, creating lanes for the running backs to run through. So that blocking and tackling, that's the piece that you absolutely need, and that's what we're talking about with your ERP and WMS. So think about, if you get an Epicor ERP and WMS 10 years ago, and during the implementation, there's going to be money and time set aside for training your people on how to use these tools. And what happens, you get super users, they train others, and things happen. Improvements are made. But over time, people get promoted, they move on to other companies, different folks are moved in and promoted, and pretty soon that base of knowledge is lost. And all of a sudden, we have a bad system. Well, probably not. It's been my experience that whatever system we had or companies had is far more robust than the average user understands how to use, because typically there's not money set aside and time to train new folks on how to use that technology you already have.
All right. So you got to optimize what you got. In my experience, people are using less than 2/3 their ERP capability, and probably the same is true in WMS, right?
Sure, you just think to yourself, well, what percentage of the WMS functionality am I using? If it's greater than 70%, you're probably you're doing well.
Right.
All right. So again, it's not sexy, but it's foundational, and distribution has always been about doing the basics right. Some of the worst things that you can see is trying to bolt on solutions before your current solutions are even fully operational. So you want to make sure that you're maximizing your current investment. That's going to build a better foundation for adding artificial intelligence and reduce the risk of failures due to unstable systems. Right.
Got it.
Move on. So this is a great place where you can use generative AI, because taking time to document all of the processes can be a very time consuming. So and if you want your distribution customers to have a consistent experience, it's very important that you have a consistent process to follow from the inventory coming into the warehouse all the way through and exiting the warehouse. So documenting those processes thoroughly is extremely important. And this is, like I said, this is where your generative AI can come into play. You can just put in there, what the steps are. I take the freight out of the trailer. I'm checking it to make sure it's not damaged. We're making sure that it's the right SKU, it's the right quantity, that sort of thing. And then being able to capture errors at the point of entry, so that you can judge your vendors later. And then adding in pictures in with screenshots, so that knowledge of how to use your system isn't lost when somebody gets promoted or moves on. It's a book, and then you can just pass that on to the next person. You're being fair to your employees when you're onboarding them. You've got their set of instructions, and they understand what the expectation is. You're being fair.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed is that the ChatGPT and these other LLMs, they know the documentation and the routines built in these software systems. They're very good at writing these how to interact with this software. I mean, they understand it. So you don't have to like describe every step. You can say what you're trying to accomplish, and it'll go in and say, well, this is how you do it in the Epicor WMS. Which version do you have, right?
Yeah, it just makes it very efficient.
Right.
All right, so preparing the operation to harness AI. So, AI ready doesn't mean robots tomorrow. It's planning, it's tightening processes, it's cleaning your data and training your teams. So, good data is fuel. If the data is wrong, your AI decisions are going to be wrong as well. Next slide. And here's that blocking and tackling that I talk about. This is the fundamental stuff. So developing a digital strategy is super important. Again, it's you just don't want to jump in. You want to have an overall strategy that matches your operation. You don't want it the other way around. You don't want to have a digital strategy and then match your operation to that digital strategy. Your technology should support the goals of your operation, not the other way around. The next big thing is migrating your systems to the cloud, and that's not just a benefit for artificial intelligence. There's a lot of other benefits associated, with having your systems in the cloud. You don't have to maintain all those servers on site. You don't have to purchase excess servers for future growth. Nothing worse than being in the warehouse. You're picking, you're packing, you're shipping. All of the operations are going, and all of a sudden, the system just stops. And what happened? I don't know. Well, our AR clerk ran a report, and it just ate up all of the comp that we had on site. And that, well, with the cloud, that doesn't happen, right? You only pay for what you use, and you have that added capability as you grow and as processes happen. That happens. So it's not only good for artificial intelligence, but there's a lot of other benefits to cloud. Then it's with the creating the data lake to centralize your data, because there's a modern distributor's got data coming from all over the place, whether it's a yard management system or your ERP, your warehouse management system, your CRM. All of this data is out there, and distributors have a lot of it, and that is really how you make your money, because you got to get that. But if it's kind of disparate and all over the place, it's not as good. So creating that data lake that all that data goes into then allows the artificial intelligence to have access to that and make those good decisions. And the last thing, one of those things is improving your data quality. A lot of data is going to be good, but there might be some unit of measure issues, past orders, some anomalies in the data that can throw off buying patterns, things like that. Being able to go through and identify that to make sure it's ready for AI, so that the output that your artificial intelligence is giving you is gonna set you up for success. And then once you do all that, you'll be able to better utilize AI and get the benefits from that. Now, can you come in right now and bolt on an AI if you're sitting on premise? Sure, but it's not going to be as sustainable. The data has to come out. They have to clean it and go back in. It doesn't work as well. So those are the steps. And so when you think about it, what in your operation do you think AI could eliminate the most waste today? Is it inventory management? Is it transportation? What are those things that helps you at the top delivering that strategy?
And you're really talking about building something scalable here, right? I mean, this is when you have a data lake like this, and you've got these systems in the cloud, so you don't accumulate all that technical debt, and you've got better security, and you've got more bandwidth for performance, and then you work on the quality of it. I mean, these are things that provide iterative improvements on a scalable system over time.
Spoken like a pro. All right, so now let's talk about some challenges. We got into this a little bit. The day of the silos. and that creating the data, getting that data from the disparate system all into one place. Understanding, there's going to be snags, and most AI rollouts don't fail because of the tech. The tech's bad. The tech is good, but it's poor planning, uh, bad partners, lack of change management, which goes into that second part of workforce resistance and implementing training programs. Now, realistically, there's a lot of folks that are scared about AI. They're worried that they're going to lose their job. Now, is that going to happen in some cases? Probably, but there's also going to be lots of jobs that are created because of AI, and people's jobs are going to be made better because of AI if they're able to utilize it. And then another one is the cost of cloud migration, and so it's important to take a phased approach. But the thing is to do something, right? You don't want to just wait and your competitors are gonna pass you by. So understand that it's not going to be perfect the first time around, right? You know, we're experts at distributing materials. Errors still happen, and distributors aren't experts in artificial intelligence and AI. So it's going to happen. Plan for it, and just and focus on making it better for next time. Any thoughts on that, Ian?
No, I think that's right. I think the AI is moving so fast, right? That there's to me two dilemmas. There's a bunch of them, but two major ones are failing to keep up, right? And or because you just are ignoring the technology that's available now, and then you're eroding competitive advantage to people who are now getting better service levels, quote turnarounds, et cetera, and better asset working capital utilization, et cetera. The other one is that you are waiting for the grand solution, right? So we're gonna completely tear out all of our systems and go with AI enabled stuff across the board. It's like, well, you need some practice before you are able to do anything really big with AI. You need to get into this habit of continuous updates and improvements in small ways, and getting your system to the point where you're ready for maybe a major AI implementation when you've learned how to do it. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I think you got to stay on top of it, and you got to act. You got to realize that it's going to be a whole lot of small steps at first, and then you're going to have some big grand slams down the road.
100% agree. Let's go to the
Okay.
next slide. All right, so we're talking about overcoming challenges of AI implementations. The thing is don't skip the rollout phase. It's test, it's piloting, it's scaling, and you really want to treat it like a project, not a product, right? The best ROI isn't big flashy deployments. It's solving one problem really well, kind of you were talking about, and then kind of building from there.
Right.
Think about, well, what's one small manageable thing you could use to pilot today that would make a difference? You think about, what our sponsors, Fishbowl, they're tackling inventory. And to
Right.
your point, there's, you look at the ledger for a distributor. There's nothing bigger than a distributor's inventory, and whatever the inventory management philosophy is, whether it's I'm trying to reduce inventory so that I can make my operations more efficient, or I'm trying to reduce inventory levels of different SKUs so that I can bring in additional SKUs into the warehouse so that they're not coming out being drop shipped. Whatever that philosophy is, the more efficient you can have your inventory in your facilities, the better. Whatever the philosophy is. So again, what's that? How do you, the key is to get started. What's that one small thing you could do?
Right.
And we talk about there's more challenges. Poor tech selection, right? You don't want to buy from the salesperson you like the most just because they're great, right? Their goals are I have to make my quotas, they might not necessarily have your best interests in mind. So, working with a vendor agnostic partner that does this for a living, it can be super helpful, especially if you're looking at something bigger like an ERP or a WMS. They understand all these systems. They know your industry, and they'll be able to help point you in the right direction. And then a lack of planning. It's that mentality of let's dive in, we're go-getters, let's get this thing done. Well, no, it's got to be planned. You don't want to do step 4 before you do step 10. It's like Eric Kimbling from Third Stage Consulting. He's got a great book, and he's like, well, his idea is like, well, if I'm going to build a house, the first phone call I'm not going to make is to the plumber, right? I want to have plans to design the house first before I start jumping in. And that's kind of the thing. If going and calling the plumber before you've even got a foundation laid is not good for anybody. And then cost and training. And so budget and training effectively. It's not just for the first initial rollout, but make sure that you're budgeting that in the years following so that your people are kept up to speed on how these things run. Now, it's most important with cloud solutions, because those cloud solution providers are pumping out updates on intervals. It could be a 6 months or 3 months or whatever, and there could be great new functionality that's in the product that you might not be taking advantage of if you're not looking for it. So making sure that, and that's a new way of thinking for IT folks, because they're used to, well, here's my system. Yeah, I'm going to use this space. It's on premise, and then 3 or 4 years from now, we're going to do the next one. But with these cloud solutions, especially multi-tenant, you're getting these updates regularly, and so they have to make that change in mindset from managing the data and the processes to understanding these new capabilities that are being rolled out, and getting those into the operations hands so that they can make their operation more efficient. So you want to make sure your metrics about AI outcomes. Next. Next is defining success. So we're not talking about sci-fi. It's talking about smarter put away, predictive maintenance, better labor forecasting, utilizing AI to make things better. You think about what are use cases that AI can help me with. Think about, we've got trucks rolling in all the time. If you're utilizing a WMS with directed put away, and you've got a truck coming in with 50 products on it, and you've got 35 different doors to choose from, wouldn't it be good to utilize AI to say, well, what door should that be on, so that I can minimize the travel to put away for those items, right? Those are the important use cases that that can be available for companies to use, and you want to match them up to your KPIs, and so make sure you're getting the proper return on investment.
Yeah, and I like the focus on tracking workforce adoption rates, because there's a lot of resistance and workarounds that happens when you put these new systems in, and you can't like force faith. You got to, like, as you said in the previous slide, you got to train people and win them over, right? And but if they got to use it eventually in order for you to hit these KPIs, so you're going to have to win them over, right? And you just wrote an article about leadership in warehouse that we published on May 7th. That was, I think, about how important it is to be a teacher when you're a leader in a logistics role. And this is one of those places where it's like you're going to get pushback. People are going to like, hey, I know how to use the old system. It makes me feel good and like an expert that I have mastered it. Now you're asking me to abandon that expertise and learn something new. And they've got to understand why that's important and why it's good not only for the company but for them to do that.
Yeah, that's part of the change management piece, right? You have to understand that, it's something I struggled with early in my career because, I'd come out of the Marine Corps and I'm like, listen, I've got a mission. We've got to get this stuff out. Now just let's do it. Like I don't want to hear any whining, crying, complaining,
Right.
excuses. Let's go get it done. Not everybody appreciates that form of communication. I had to learn that, unfortunately, the hard way. But being, helping your people understand what's in it for them, because you're going to have, just like companies have the adoption curve. You're going to have people in your operation that have adoption. You're going to have a certain percentage that are excited, they're on board, they want to learn, and then you slowly getting people more on board. And what's important is, like, no leader's got the time to go out and address every single person's concern. But what you can do is you've got those informal leaders that are out on the floor that people listen to and make things happen. So you get to those folks and
Right.
help them understand, listen, we're not trying to fire everybody. Right?
Right.
This isn't we're not you're not this warehouse isn't going to be 100% robots.
Right.
This is to help you. And if you get those informal leaders on board, they'll get everybody else on board.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about how AI is actively transforming warehouse operations now. I'm sure you can talk about a lot of great use cases that our sponsors are doing with Epicor, putting AI into their ERPs, and Fishbowl doing great things with inventory control and inventory. But it's things like smart replenishment, demand based slotting that really kind of uh, uh, um, that are really changing the needle and allowing distributors to operate better. Predictive demand to minimize overstocks. Right. If you think about traditional demand planners, they're judged on having stock in the warehouse.
Right.
They're they get yelled at when things go out of stock. So the tendency is, I'm going to have a little bit extra. Well, when you have a little bit extra of everything, then all of a sudden your cost, your sunk costs of is your capital is tied up. And once if you're a manual warehouse and you're over 80% capacity, your efficiency starts dropping precipitously a lot. So if you think about a forklift driver, he's got a skid, a paper towels to go put away. Well, I've got to figure out, where am I going to put that away? And once you're over 80%, you're just making laps trying to find open spaces. So it's again, making sure that you have the right amount of inventory, which can be challenging, right? Because you never know what's going to happen with disruptions. So a lot of many years ago, the whole idea about inventory was just in time, just in time, just in time. Then the pandemic happened, and everybody was out. Then there was like just in case, just in case, just in case. Inventory levels ballooned.
Yeah.
Well, riding that balance of just in time and just in case is important. What are the SKUs that I want to have a little bit extra of? Utilizing 80-20 principle, and 80% of my sales are probably coming from 20% of my SKUs. Might make sense to have a little bit more of that on hand, depending on what's going on.
Yeah. I can't tell you the number of distributors I know who've gotten in trouble with this. I mean, I know one that went bankrupt. Manufacturers get in trouble with this. There's the largest or second largest motorcycle manufacturer in Europe is called KTM. They just declared bankruptcy. They had a year of inventory on hand when they did that. Guess where their cash went? And that's a sophisticated company. I mean, you really have to stay on top of this, and technology helps. But I think we almost take it for granted that we're not going to get in trouble with inventory, but distributors do all the time.
That's cash flow. It's the lifeblood. If you
Right.
can't if you're not generating cash, you're keeping bills.
Right.
You're going to struggle unless you're cash rich. Let me move on to the next. So, a couple case studies. We all know Amazon. Amazon is using AI, and Amazon Business is taking away share. But it doesn't. It's not all big companies. It's small companies like Amara. They're a wedding dress manufacturer. They started using inventory control, artificial intelligence, and they were able to reduce their overstock by 40%. They're also utilizing generative AI for marketing, and reducing the amount of time it takes to create marketing things by 60%. So again, the big companies are doing it. So it's important that you start. But again, you're also seeing smaller companies that are on the forefront that are realizing serious gains. I think talking about Ian, that company that went out of business. If they were able to reduce their overstock by 40%, maybe
They would
they'd
not have
still
gone
be
under.
around.
They would have been around. Yeah, for sure. Right.
So, what's your Amara problem? Like, what
Right.
KPI has kind of been stuck for years that you just haven't been able to move the needle on? That might be a great place to start with your AI. All right, so future of artificial intelligence in wholesale distribution, and it's here. There's companies that are using it. At some point it's going to become table stakes, and the future isn't about replacing people. It's about equipping people with the tools to win. Right now, you may not need your AR clerk spending all their time on matching invoices because 95% of them are going to be accurate, but the 5% that aren't, they can spend the time researching and fixing those so that that resolution happens quicker, and they can work on other problems as well. So picture your fleet that syncs with your dock scheduling through software, flagging delays before they even come in. So you know where your fleet is. You're a distributor, you're a plumbing distributor, and you're delivering items to sites. Well, if you've got sensors on there, you can track, you can send updates to your customers saying, "Hey, you're 3 stops away, you're 6 stops away. You expect your delivery in a half of an hour," and they can take pictures because sometimes those sites they get deliveries, before anybody's there, so to be able to prove what happened. So the future is in utilizing it is in these sensors that can help with your operation. So you just have to ask: are you building towards the future, or are you waiting for somebody else in the market so you can be a follower? And then we look at it as some more future trends: autonomous fleets for efficient transportation. I kind of struggle. I'll be honest. I struggle with this one a little bit. Yeah, I mean, when you think about jobs, one of the biggest jobs for a guy that doesn't have a college education is being a truck driver. Now, if every truck was autonomous, what happens to all those folks?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm sure there'll be something. It happened. Back in the horse and buggy era, there was plenty of companies that were building buggies, and then all of a sudden the automobile came on place, and then now all those jobs were created. So it's we'll see what happens. Um, Enhanced supply chain visibility, artificial intelligence, analytics, last mile innovations, and sales and customer engagement. So again, you think about what's really bugging you. What's that KPI that you haven't been able to land? Is it OTIF, right? Like our sponsor was talking about earlier, the on time in full. Is it obsolete inventory? Do you have too much of it? Is it going out of stock or going out of code too quickly if you're a food or a chemical distributor? What are the problems that you're facing? Pick one of those and go. And then so steps for the future. Stay informed through industry events. Um, I can't think of a better event to learn about artificial intelligence than what Ian and his distribution strategy group is doing here in Chicago, coming up in June. I'm excited to be there. That's where you can learn what the industry is doing. Also other industry conferences like NAW, the National Association of Wholesale Distributors. You're going to learn what your peers are doing. You're going to learn what are the latest trends, what's happening. Get with your peers and learn. And so that's a great way to keep up with what's happening in the industry. Plus, you're supporting those associations that are out looking out for your best interest. They a lot of times they'll offer educational seminars for future leaders. They're a lot of times they're lobbying Congress for beneficial laws for the industry, that sort of thing. And then you want to build a relationship with your tech partners. So like who's my ERP provider? If I've got Epicor as my ERP provider, I want to make sure I've got a great working relationship with them. Because I know if you go to them and say, listen, here's my problem with my inventory. Do you have an AI solution for that? If they don't have one, they may be willing to work with you to build one. Because
Right.
these ERP providers want to create a Rolodex. We still use Rolodex, Ian. I know what you know what it does. They want to create.
It's a dated reference, right? Yeah.
They want to create a menu
Right.
of different offerings that they can offer to all their customers. So a lot of times they may work with you on your specific problem, and then they can roll that out to all the rest of the. So having that close relationship with your tech providers is super important. And then just keeping that collaboration for innovation. It's all real important.
So we're going to have the website, the white paper up. I didn't realize we didn't have the URL in here. So we will, this isn't ready to go, but we will have a white paper, and we'll update the slides for download later. So any questions from the audience? Let's see here. I don't see any in the Q&A. So I think... Let's see here, Q&A. Nope, I don't see any questions. So let's go ahead and wrap up. Please hang on for just a minute. Hey, tomorrow we've got on the Wholesale Change podcast, Janet Zelenka, who's the genius I talked about earlier, talking about the future of AI in distribution. You're not going to want to miss that. Janet is a 2-time CIO. She's won all kinds of awards. She's really smart and capable and understands AI and how to use it. She's facilitating a panel, moderating a panel at our upcoming conference. That's sponsored by Epicor, so thanks for that. So sign up for that right away. And then on June 4th, maximizing sales through online marketplaces. We'll have more than one company on the panel, but for now, we've got Tracy Bilo, who's the VP of Category Management at Zorro, who's sponsoring this event, and we'll have some others as well. So, hey, Will, great job. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was great working with you, and look forward to the next event we do with you. And we'll see you in Chicago in June.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you so much to those sponsors.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Bye now.